Hi, everyone, and welcome to Lunch with Bryohm. This is our live lunch format, and my name is Rebecca Ryhed, and I'm one of the practitioners at the platform Bryohm. And as you might know, Bryohm is a platform for holistic health, for and relationships, where we make it easier to take care of yourself, both mentally and physically, emotionally, and in relationships and spirituality. And today, our guest is Laura Blancke, who works at the intersection of embodiment, relational practice, and conscious communication. And the theme for today is the invisible stories that shape every team. And we're going to talk about the assumptions that quietly move through workplaces and what it takes to catch them before they become tension. So we have around 45 minutes today, and we're going straight to what actually makes a difference, how to notice when you're guessing rather than knowing, and how to find your way back into a conversation when things feels off. So Lunch with Bryohm is a recurring format with voices from our network. It's relevant topics and practical tools for better well-being at work and life. And the next up on 7th of May is Christine Wallin Hägglund, and she's going to talk about how humor shapes well-being, collaboration, and results. So today's theme, the invisible stories that shape every team. We're talking about what happens when we start reacting to what actually happened and stop reacting to the story we made up about it. So Laura Blancke, her background spans from breathwork, the wheel of consent, authentic relating, practices that are all rooted in learning to listen to the body, to others, and to what's actually being said beneath the surface. She brings that same orientation into the workplace. The assumption that create frictions in teams aren't so different from the ones that create distance in any relationship. So welcome today, Laura.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And thank you to Bryohm that I can be here. It's an honor. So let's dive in. The stories that we tell ourselves at work. So what are we talking about here? It's the moments where we send out an email or a message and there's no reply coming, or there's a certain interaction and there is a reply. And we start guessing how the other person meant something, what they were feeling, what they were thinking. And this impacts a lot how we move forward from there. So, yeah, as Rebecca already shared, I work a lot around relational patterns, communication, both in the realms of intimacy with my company, Intimate Breath, as well as any other relationship. So the tools that I'm going to share here, they're applicable anywhere, and I use them anywhere. But we're focusing today on the work floor. So, as I already said, well, before we go further, you might be tuning in from different channels, but feel so free to write a comment if thoughts are coming up, or if you have questions, just send it to us and we might be able to bring it up on the screen. Voila, like that. So in these moments where something happens, basically any moment, it could be any type of situation, There's data, there's raw data of what actually happens, and then there's a meaning that we give to it. And there we are filling in the blanks. And it's something that we do all the time. And it's not something that we should stop doing either. Like that's not going to work, probably, right? It's very human. Let's move on. Yeah, so we all do this. Very human. And it's fast, it's automatic, and we perceive it as a truth. Why? Because we all love control. And we're not so comfortable usually with uncertainty. And so that's one of the practices, like growing in capacity to be with not knowing, to be with uncertainty. I think that's very valuable. And there's a lot of embodiment practices that help us with that. Yeah, but in those moments where we just go with instinct, with automatic response, it's going to come fast. The things that are uncertain, we're going to make it certain, and we're going to take it as a truth. Very often we're not aware of it. So we do it without realizing it. And so imagine something happens, we give it a certain meaning, and our behavior next is based on the meaning that we gave it. It's usually not based on what actually happened. And it impacts how we communicate from there forward, right? How we relate, how we make our decisions. So it impacts our whole culture. It's how patterns are being formed, right? Because we respond in one way, and the person that we're in interaction with is also impacted by that. And so there's this loop that we're getting into. I see someone respond, it's programmed into our autonomous nervous system. Exactly. This is so much nervous system knowledge, yeah, in different words. Because the meaning that we give to a situation, sometimes it's based on what we know already about the person, right? Sometimes it's based on some intuition as well, or empathy, right? So all of these pieces are in there. But what's also in there is our own personal filters that we have in our baggage. They're formed by conditioning, how we grew up, right? Um, and it's not always filters that are so helpful for our relationships and ourselves, right? So what we're assuming and the meaning that we give things isn't always in line with reality. So something happens. Let's say I walk into the hallway. I'm a little bit in a rush. I'm going somewhere. Yeah, I have maybe another meeting coming up. And in the hallway, I pass someone else, a colleague that I have a particular project with. And we have this super short interaction. They're also maybe on their way somewhere, right? And I have a little bit, I share an idea that came up recently, and I'm like, oh, but we can talk later about it. And, but it's this like hurried little conversation. And then as we end the conversation, the colleague is like, yeah, but let's leave it for now. Um, and we walk on. That is what happened. And I might be wondering this, let's leave it for now. What did she mean with that? And I might already be feeling things, right? Maybe there's some discomfort in my body. Maybe I get a little bit contracted in my throat. Maybe I feel something in my belly. I don't know what she meant there. Yet this second step of I don't know, usually I'm not really gonna think about the fact that I don't know, right? I decide I do know. In that moment, I am deciding that I do know what she was thinking or feeling and meaning. And that might be just, oh, she seemed to have a bad day. And that's it. Yeah. Mm, it might also be, she didn't like the ideas I was saying. It's still a rather small impact, maybe. Yeah. Depending on how I take it, right? But this might go a lot further because it might be, she doesn't like the ideas that I'm bringing. You know what? I am a very creative person. I have a lot of ideas. And it's every time in this company that there's not, they're not giving so much value on creativity, on my creativity. And they give a lot of more value to going fast, being time efficient, coming with results right away. It's not really in line with where I'm at, and there's not really space for me here, and there's a whole story. They're like, in this company, this is based on this little interaction, right? In this company, there's not enough space. They're not valuing my creative ideas, my creative input. Whew. Yeah, that becomes a big story. And with that, in my hand, I'm walking further in the hallway. I'm taking it with me into the next meeting, and later on, also in my next interaction with this colleague that, this happened with. I'm going to act like it's true. And they're also going to start acting like it's true. Probably. We're going to get to that. But the fact is that I am guessing. It's going to feel like it's true, but there were so many steps that happened there. And that's what is important here. Realizing that I am guessing. And I might be guessing right. It's not about being wrong, right? It might be true. But I think there's a lot of value in recognizing that there are also other possible truths here. Or even multiple truths at the same time. So I see some comments here. These are so relevant feelings that so many employees feel. Exactly. Stories that truly define the employees and become their identity. Very dangerous. Exactly. Yeah. So how does this impact as well? There's so many ways of reacting to this, right? But as I get into that next interaction with this colleague, I might be in my, withdrawn. Well, she doesn't like my ideas anyway. There's not really space here. I just get quieter and quieter, right? And then she might be like, okay, there's not really a lot of input here. Well, I need to do this myself. And, and there might be this self-fulfilling prophecy of my own story. Maybe I go into over-explaining, right? Maybe I feel like I need to bring them even more on the table and explain why they're so relevant and why it's important. I might go into this whole thing of like around this time efficiency and priorities and how we're working, that for this other person might be like, why are we having this whole unnecessary conversation here, all built on my own story here and what I have in my hand. There's obviously going to be more tension, yeah, or I might get passive aggressive. And there's so many other ways I could respond or react here, right? And it's impacting everybody around us. Mm. So the story that I have with me in my hand in that meeting, it's invisible. Yeah. The other person can also only guess what my story is. We all have our stories. But the behavior, how I show up, is visible. And it's this loop that we're seeing here, right? I already said it before. Yeah. Something happened. We create a story. We behave a certain way. It has an impact on the people around us and it reinforces the whole thing. And this can happen in a first meeting with somebody. I don't know that person. I don't have a history with that person. Yet the way they're saying something might impact me, and I might make assumptions. Yeah. Also, the way they are saying something might remind me of something that is in my backpack, yeah, of history that I have with other people. And it might trigger something in me, activate something that isn't about this moment. So the bigger story comes here. But this can also happen with people that we have already worked with for, I don't know, 5 years. Yeah. And we have our patterns already. And it can be so easy. Like it's really a pitfall with these people, especially to be like, yeah, but I know them. I know how they think. I know what they like. I know what they mean. It's like being married for 15 years, and two partners starting to assume what the other person wants and likes or means. While we are people that change every day, right? Life changes every day. So especially when it's something older that has a history, what we're talking about here is very relevant. Yet it might be a little bit more difficult to actually start checking reality. So it's not about stopping the stories, more about, yeah, they're stories. Mm. So, how can we approach that? Mm. Whether I'm working with groups or individuals around personal relationships, intimate relationships, or, you know, collaborative relationships, I love to slow down. I think there's so much power in slowing down. So taking a pause really is the magic for me. Because we said in the beginning as well, there's a certain urgency in the filling in the blanks, especially the more the situation is charged, the more tension there is, the faster we're going to be with these automatic um, stories. Yeah, the meaning that we give it. And that fastness, that is our reactiveness. It's a little bit of, yeah, survival instinct. And the, as soon as we can slow down and just like even just take one breath, 1 second of like, wait a moment. That's already, I would say, 90% of the work is done. Not easy, but like in that moment, we could be asking ourselves, it's like a reality check. What do I actually know? What are the facts? If someone would have been looking from the outside, what did they see? And this can go rather far, right? If someone let's say someone is crying. Maybe not so relevant for the for the work floor, but who knows? Yeah, someone is sitting on their own and tears are running over their face. It can be very easy to assume that they are being sad or upset. Um, actually, right. Again, there's intuition. Again, there's empathy. Yeah, we've can pick up more than what is visible. That's what I believe, at least. And we all have a different relationship to our intuition, and what we're picking up, right? Um, now I'm reading the comment here, but I'm gonna get to it in a moment. Um, but again, it's our intuition. We can't just take it on as a truth. Because the reality is, this person might actually be having um, a very joyful moment, or they might be coming out of a very stressful situation earlier, maybe even an hour earlier. And in this moment, they can finally relax. There's a relief, there's a release, and there's some tears. And there's many more options, right? We cannot assume that in that moment, that person is being sad and it's about that moment. This is just one example, right? But what do we actually know? It's really like super raw data. And then could something else be true? Like I just gave some examples around. Mm. And there we can actually play with making more assumptions, right? Like we're good at that. We can use our imagination. Um, what more stories can we come up with? We can get creative there. Yeah. And that is for ourselves. So this pause and these questions, it's with ourselves and for ourselves. So let me get to some of the comments here. We come with predefined and redetermined assumptions and stories instead of coming with curiosity and open mind. Exactly. Which unfortunately eliminates a lot of interesting things that could come up from the conversation and getting to know new aspects of the personality of the person we are meeting with. Very true. The pause allows us to identify what we already know and what else are we interested in knowing. And what do I expect from that conversation? And here's another, if someone is having tears, could also be an allergic reaction because it's spring. Exactly, right? So um, it can be fun to actually go even more into stories because it brings a little bit of humor as well to our own, the serious, like, I know what's happening here. And um, if it's a fun play to game for you, yeah, play to game, game to play for you, you can totally just go more into it and exaggerate a little bit. Um, so then we could actually also bring the reality check in the the actual relationship into the interaction with another person. So I can go to my colleague, and maybe I have the assumption with me, and it could sound like, "Hey, can I check something?" I noticed that the moment you said this thing of like, "Hey, let's just leave it for now," um, I was making up that my ideas weren't welcome, that it was too much, and that you would rather just move on to execute, right? Um, it could sound like that. Could sound like I have the story in my head that when this happened. However, when you ask it that specifically and you really bring in your own story, um, that is asking something from you and from the other. if you want to do this, you need a moment where there's like, you know, you can sit down maybe, um, and you have some space for this. You both feel regulated, especially if you also bring in your own story and there's some vulnerability in it. You might want to have some space to be with how this conversation is going. And you might not feel comfortable to do this with everybody or anybody. We don't always choose who we work with either, right? And so we have certain relationships where we don't feel comfortable actually bringing something that might feel a little bit raw. And that's okay. So, depending on the situation, on your relationship with them, and on your own level of comfort, really, you can really share, if they're open for it, the story you have in your head and be like, is that true? Or am I just making it up? And how was that for you? There's an even more simple way. Yeah, we can approach this other person, set our own story aside for a moment, and bring our curiosity back to the original situation. Hey, I saw that you were crying. How are you feeling? Um, hmm, I noticed that I'm still a little bit with our conversation and with the sentence that you said, like, let's leave it for now. How did you mean that? Another one. I haven't gotten a reply yet to my email, and I wonder if you've seen it. Any of these, we're not bringing in our own story here. We're placing it on the side. We're holding it with us. It's still valuable, right? But we're bringing our curiosity. We're opening the door. And we're bringing our focus outward towards the other person. And it can be as simple as that. Yeah. Um, Usually people are happy to receive curiosity. Usually this is received well. But it's also a lot around, I think this is in the next slide. Yeah, the tone, right? All of these examples, if I would say them or ask these questions with another intention, not with curiosity, but actually with like pointing the finger, or especially with the email, for example, have you seen it? You know, like, can almost be passive aggressive, right? So it's a lot about like, what is your intention with asking this? Is it to point a finger to express whatever frustration you're sitting with, or is it to actually make sure whatever is tension is potentially building up between you can melt into the floor and not become something bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah. So basically, out of care for your relationship. So keep it simple is about this, like taking a step back, moving your own story to the side, and actually really just bringing your curiosity. Mm. And this can break patterns that have been going on for years. Really, just bringing curiosity and asking the question, setting your own story aside and asking, what did you mean? Um, this is also allowing the other person to bring in their truth. It doesn't mean your truth isn't welcome either, but you're two in a relationship, right? So I think it's cool if we can both bring in our own truths also in that relationship. It's not always easy, as I already said. Um, Not always the right moment, and it's not about doing this perfect. Yeah. The fact that you're just trying something else, taking that pause, and coming from care, basically, putting the effort in looking at this relationship. Yeah. Um, that's enough. Let's start with that, right? And it's not a magic tool. Well, it can be. It can be magic. So let's stay open for magic. I like to take that with me anywhere I go, right? Um, but it's not guaranteed. It's a tool that can very quickly diminish whatever stories aren't helpful. Um, but sometimes a story is true. Sometimes a pattern is there and it needs more, right? Sometimes we ask the question and the other person doesn't feel the capacity to answer honestly. So we might be asking a question and actually we hear a reply and it's like, this doesn't make sense. I'm not really feeling you in there. Actually, I don't believe you. And that is also information going back here. Yeah, it's about adding information before you react. Yeah, it's adding information here. There's not enough trust here. Or this needs something more. There's something here, basically. Um, and then we always each have our own part to look at as well, right? So sometimes there can be the tendency to bring in things into the relational in an attempt to solve something. I think it's always good to try. Like if you come from care, yeah. And then sometimes you need to bring it back to yourself as well. There's a part for me here to look at. Yeah. So let's look again at some comments here. What I noticed, we stop at the assumption stage and we don't take it further to actually do something. Maybe approach the person and be human and offer some comfort or help. Exactly. Imagine the impact of doing this internally with yourself. Doing this internally with yourself. When you pause and allow yourself having such honest conversation and confrontation to how you're feeling and what you're experiencing at the moment. Yes, it takes practice, but the result I personally experienced is invaluable. It is a lot of practice with yourself. Really, this moment of pausing and catching yourself. Um, Not like very hard keeping on holding on to your story, but actually opening the door and bringing your curiosity can be immense work you're doing. And it's so powerful. Yeah, so why it works probably already obvious from what I shared. Hmm. It can really break walls that are standing in between. Creates clarity, it brings reality back in. And I want to say sometimes what I'm making up, I'm thinking back of a moment where I had made a wish. It was on a birthday celebration of mine. Um, and afterwards, I was worried that I had expressed myself too intensely, that people were overwhelmed. And I checked with everybody. And there was in particular one person that I was worried about. And everybody said, no, it wasn't too much. And this one person said, yes, I feel overwhelmed. This was too much for me. And it might be easy to think that, oh, that's like my worst fear is coming true. Actually, at that moment, something just relaxes in my system. Because now I was picking up something, I sensed something, I checked, it was true. And our nervous system loves to know what is real. It's like, okay, here we are. And that's it. Truth is really, truth is a powerful regulator for our nervous system. I said that a bit weirdly. Regulator for our nervous system. Um, so sometimes it can be scary to check something and be like, yeah, but what if it's, what if it's true what I'm thinking? Yeah. And I would say in my personal experience, it always feels better to just know instead of guess. Right. So let's try it out. I'm inviting you to join me here for a moment. Maybe you even want to write it down for yourself. Can help to take a pen and write it down. So think of a situation where that happened recently, where something felt a little bit off. An interaction where you left the interaction feeling maybe a bit of tension somewhere in your body. You felt a bit down. You were impacted somehow, and can be the smallest thing. More so, I would say take one of the smaller ones. Don't pick the big one that has been giving you already many sleepless nights. And then you can write down or think for yourself what actually happened. What actually happened? So maybe I'm thinking of a moment where I was meeting with another colleague. They came into the room, and when we started talking, they raised their voice more than usual. That's what happened. What story did I create? That's the next one you can write down. What did I make up there? Maybe in this example, I'm making up that, well, I know they're having trouble in their marriage. So maybe, I'm assuming they just had a fight with their partner. They're coming in now, and then I get to be with the impact of that. I'm assuming it has nothing to do with me. And I'm getting angry. That they're always, every time, taking it out on me, for example. So here I already added also how, not only what meaning did I give it, but also how do I feel about that? So that could be the second part of the second question. How do I feel about that? And then how did that impact my behavior? My example can be, maybe I got frustrated. I started being passive aggressive, or I also started to raise my voice. Maybe I got very quiet. How did it impact your behavior? And then the last one, very important. What else could be true? And what would I do differently? Yeah, maybe this person is actually frustrated with me. Maybe um, I hadn't replied to something or I hadn't picked up on something and I'm just completely oblivious. And they're not telling me. Yeah. So, where I was assuming that it has nothing to do with me, maybe it has to do with me. So, then, a step that I would definitely add then to bring it into action is how could I check that? What's the most simple way to check this? For this example, it could be I noticed that you are raising your voice, and I wonder if something's going on. Yeah. For example, there's so many ways to check this, right? I could also check, hey, are you angry with me? I'm making up that you are angry at me. Is that true? And then after this meeting, of course, you can go ahead and check it with the person if they're open for it, right? I would recommend always checking, hey, do you feel space for this? Can I check something with you? Maybe it's a no. Yeah, respect that as well. But so often the tension isn't in what actually happened. It's about the meaning we gave it. And there was a comment here as well. This is something that I have been really working on for myself. It's a pattern where I get an email and without even reading the full text, my mind starts to fill in stuff that is not there. So I really need to be mindful of that. Taking time helps. But also, I started using AI to help me connect more to what the other person is writing and challenge me. Mm? Yeah, actually, you can also totally use AI to see all the other possible truths. Someone else, I work with managers who feel stuck and small, although they are overachievers. One of my clients would never take any action if she isn't certain of the results. She would avoid asking questions or asking for help because for her, the assumption she had was people will judge me, they will think I'm stupid, and I should know better. This pattern stopped her from growing, looking for opportunities elsewhere, or asking for what she wanted or deserved. It also made her be overloaded. Exactly, so there's resonance here. I'm gonna invite Rebecca back here because I'm at the end of my slides here. And this was mainly what I wanted to share. There's so much more to say about this, right? But
Yeah, thank you, Lore. It was very interesting. And I can just say personally that I really learned a lot. Also, in my private relationship, actually, I could refer to what happens when I create my stories about my partner and myself. So, and I really loved what you said about that your nervous system actually relaxes when you get to know the truth. And I can really feel that that applies to me. Like, I feel like as long as I get the truth, I can handle it like 99% of the times. But if I don't know, if I'm making it up or if it's my intuition, like it takes a lot of energy from me to wonder. So my nervous system relaxes when I get an answer, even though the answer might be uncomfortable. So I really liked that.
yeah. It's a big one. It can be so scary, but yeah, truth works for me and for a lot of people. Yeah.
Yeah.
Mhm.
So I don't know if anyone else have any questions that they want to ask. Feel free. I have a cat here that wants to climb on my laptop, so I'm trying to. Um, yeah. So because I think we're running out of time, right? We said,
So, yeah,
yeah.
I was naughty and I took some extra minutes.
Uh, Laura, if you could send one thing to everyone, like sort of a tip or just one like major thing to think about before they join their next team meeting or um, enter a situation like this, what would it be? It's the
Yeah. Yeah, I mean it's some type of repetition, but I definitely would say start small. You don't need to like bring all your courage and right away start difficult conversations, but start with yourself. Maybe write down just, these questions for yourself first without needing to take action. But bring your bravery and bring your curiosity.
mm, great. Thanks everyone for joining, and a big thank you to you, Laura.
Thank you.
and
Pleasure.
oh, great. And you can follow Bryohm and Laura for more tools. And you can save this recording and you can share it with someone in your team if you want to. And we'll see you next time. We will have Christine Wallin Hägglund with us and explore how humor shapes how we work, feel, and connect. Same heart, same space. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye bye.